by the Honorable William J. LaPetite, I hereby assume the duties of the office of sheriff in and for the township of Rockridge.
Blazing Saddles was chaos on camera and even crazier behind the scenes. Actors collapsed, censors raged, stunts turned dangerous, and legends walked away. Nothing about this movie was safe or simple. These are 10 mind-blowing facts that show exactly how Mel Brooks made the most explosive, rule-breaking Western comedy Hollywood had ever seen. 10. The role that collapsed on day one. On the very first day of filming, everything fell apart. The Waco Kid wasn't supposed to be Gene Wilder. The role went to Gig Young, a respected actor with an Oscar on his shelf and a reputation for serious performances. He walked onto set, stepped into the jail cell, and looked the part of a weathered gunslinger. But something was wrong. His hands were trembling. His voice cracked. At first, the crew thought he was acting, a shaky drunk, broken by years of regret. But then, mid-scene, he collapsed to the floor. It wasn't a gag. It wasn't a bit. It was alcohol withdrawal, and he couldn't continue. Within hours, Mel Brooks had no choice but to remove him from the film. The production was in chaos, but Brooks didn't panic. He picked up the phone and called one man he trusted, Gene Wilder. No auditions, no studio meetings, just one question: can you be here tomorrow? Wilder didn't even ask what the role was. He simply said yes. The next morning, tired and jet-lagged, he walked onto the set, looked at the script for the first time, and when the cameras rolled, he was the Waco Kid. From that day forward, nobody ever questioned it again. 9. Richard Pryor's invisible voice. Before the cameras rolled, the soul of Blazing Saddles was already being shaped by Richard Pryor. Mel Brooks brought him in to help write the script, and Pryor went straight for the throat. His jokes didn't just make people laugh, they carried danger. They cut deep, forcing audiences to sit with uncomfortable truths before breaking the tension with humor. Brooks wanted Pryor to play the lead role too. Imagine it, Richard Pryor as Sheriff Bart. His timing, his bite, his presence, it would have been explosive. But the studio didn't see a genius ready to break barriers. They saw a man with headlines: arrests, scandals, controversies. In their eyes, Pryor was a risk they couldn't afford. So they pulled him out quietly. The role went to Cleavon Little, and Little delivered. Sharp, cool, unforgettable. But underneath his smooth delivery, Pryor's fingerprints were everywhere. The rhythm of the jokes, the dangerous bite hiding inside the laughter, that was Pryor's voice echoing through the film. He never rode the horse. He never wore the badge. But Blazing Saddles still ran on Richard Pryor's energy, start to finish. 8. The screening that almost killed it. When Warner Brothers executives finally sat down to watch the film, they didn't laugh. Not once. For 90 minutes, they sat frozen in their seats, arms crossed, faces blank. The racial satire, the fart jokes, the violence, the horse punch. To them, this wasn't comedy. It was suicide. As the credits rolled, the decision was clear. Bury it. Put it in a vault. Pretend it never happened. The studio thought releasing it would destroy everyone involved. But Mel Brooks refused. He begged for one test screening, just one chance with a real audience. If they hated it too, fine, he'd let it go. The studio reluctantly agreed. The night came. The lights went down. The film began. For the first 20 minutes, silence. Not a chuckle. Not a single laugh. Brooks sat in the back, sweating. Had he gone too far? Then it happened. The campfire scene. Cowboys eating beans. One lets loose, then another, and another. It was crude. It was loud. It was absurd. And the theater erupted. People roared with laughter. They slapped their knees. Tears streamed down their faces. That moment broke the spell. Suddenly, the audience understood the rhythm of the film. Every scene after landed harder, funnier, sharper. By the end, the crowd was rolling. The executives had been ready to kill the movie. Instead, the test screening saved it. And all it took was the world's first mainstream fart joke. 7. The horse that actually got punched. It looked like a cartoon gag, a cowboy walking up to a horse and knocking it out cold with a single punch. But in Blazing Saddles, it wasn't a trick. That was a real punch on a real horse. The stunt was planned carefully. The horse was trained. The angle was staged. But when the actor swung, the fist landed. One blow, and down went the horse. Perfect take. First try. Today, the scene would never happen. Animal rights laws, stunt restrictions, ethics. It would all stop the moment it was suggested. But in 1974, they didn't blink. They filmed it, laughed about it, and kept it in the final cut. The audience couldn't believe what they were seeing. It was outrageous, shocking, and hilarious all at once. That one punch told viewers the truth. In this movie, nothing was off limits. No rule too sacred, no gag too extreme. And that's why it became one of the most talked about moments in comedy history. 6. The line they tried to censor. If the horse punch was physical madness, the dialogue was verbal dynamite. Page after page, the script was loaded with slurs, insults, and jokes that cut into race, religion, and politics. The censors hated it. They flagged everything. Too dangerous, they said. Too offensive. Too risky. Even the simple line at the very beginning, "Up yours," sparked days of debate. Mel Brooks didn't back down. He argued that the movie's entire purpose was to push those boundaries. If you remove the edge, you remove the point. The jokes weren't there to be safe. They were there to sting, to mock hypocrisy, to force audiences to laugh at the very things society wanted to hide. In the end, Brooks fought and kept most of it in. The film that was supposed to be dulled into nothing remained sharp, biting, and unforgettable. The censors had wanted a safe comedy. Brooks delivered a historic one. All right, Ariba, here's the second 1,000-word section for your Blazing Saddles script, covering the last 5 points. Same voice as before, sharp, fast, and storytelling-driven, just like the reference transcript you gave me. Word count approximately 1,000. 5. Hate mail on set. Cleveland Little made history the moment he rode onto screen as Sheriff Bart. He was smooth, sharp, and one of the first black leads in a major Hollywood comedy. But while he was breaking barriers on camera, he was paying a price off it. Behind the scenes, letters started coming in. Hate mail, threats, racial slurs written out in black and white. Some people couldn't separate the satire from reality. Instead of understanding the joke, they aimed their ignorance directly at him. On set, you would never know it. Cleveland never flinched. He never let the pain show. He delivered his lines with cool precision, standing toe-to-toe with Gene Wilder, stealing every scene with confidence. He was unshakable, even when he was carrying the weight of hatred just outside the camera's frame. Mel Brooks later admitted how hard it was, watching Cleveland handle that abuse with grace. Blazing Saddles was supposed to mock racism, not invite it. But Cleveland turned it into something else. His performance flipped that hate on its head. He took every slur thrown his way and turned it into power. On film, he wasn't just a sheriff, he was a statement. 4. Slim Pickens didn't know it was a comedy. Slim Pickens was the real deal. A rodeo cowboy, a veteran of dozens of westerns, a man who lived and breathed the frontier persona. When Brooks cast him in Blazing Saddles, Slim showed up like he always did, ready to play it straight. The catch? Nobody told him it was a comedy. Brooks never let him in on the secret. He handed Slim the script, gave him his lines, and let him believe he was making another tough-as-nails western. So when chaos broke out on screen, fart jokes, fourth wall breaks, barroom brawls that looked like cartoons, Slim reacted like it was all deadly serious. His delivery was pure sincerity, his voice dripping with cowboy grit. And that's exactly what made it so funny. The audience howled. Slim thought he was just doing his job. But in truth, he had become the anchor of madness, the one man playing it like gospel, while the rest of the cast spiraled into absurdity. Without ever realizing it, Slim Pickens became the straight face that made the comedy explode. 3. Explosions gone wrong. For all the laughs in Blazing Saddles, danger was never far from the set. The perfect example? The dynamite gag with the toll booth. On screen, it looked like slapstick. A cart, a toll booth, and then, boom. But behind the scenes, it was inches away from disaster. The explosives were rigged to go off only after the actors cleared the blast zone. That was the plan. But plans don't always hold. On the day of shooting, something went wrong. The charge fired too early. The explosion ripped through the set seconds after the actors stepped out of frame. Debris flew. Dust filled the air. Crew members froze, realizing just how close they'd come to tragedy. No one was hurt, but it shook everyone. Brooks, though, didn't cut it. He looked at the playback and kept it in the movie. Because in Blazing Saddles, even near death could be turned into comedy gold. Chaos wasn't the enemy, it was part of the magic. 2. John Wayne said no, but loved it. Mel Brooks wanted one more icon in his film, John Wayne, the Duke, the king of the Western. If he appeared in the finale, it would have been the perfect stamp on the genre Brooks was tearing down. Wayne took the script, read a few pages, and walked into Brooks's office. "I love it," he said. Then came the pause. "But I can't do it. My fans would never forgive me. It wasn't about the jokes, it wasn't about the story, it was about image." Wayne knew his audience, and they weren't ready for a spoof that mocked everything he stood for. So he turned it down. But then he added something Brooks never forgot. "I'll be first in line to see it." And he meant it. On opening night, John Wayne showed up. He didn't appear in the movie, but he gave it something else. His blessing. The greatest Western star alive applauded the comedy that blew the whole genre apart. And in its own way, that was an even bigger endorsement. 1. A horse got better treatment than the cast. On a set filled with stars, explosions, and egos, guess who got the best treatment? Not Gene Wilder, not Cleavon Little, not even Mel Brooks himself. A horse. One of the stunt horses had its own trailer, padded, air-conditioned, with a personal handler making sure it stayed cool and comfortable. Meanwhile, the actors were squeezing behind curtains, changing clothes in cramped corners, or sharing tiny dressing spaces. Wilder laughed about it later, joking that the horse had better accommodations than he did. And he wasn't wrong. The horse was treated like royalty, while the cast just made do. Brooks defended it, saying that horse was a star, and it knew it. It hit its marks, took direction, and never once broke character. In a film where chaos ruled and nothing was sacred, maybe it made sense that the one performer who never missed a beat got the luxury suite. These 5 moments, the hate mail, the cowboy who didn't get the joke, the explosions, the Duke who said no, and the pampered horse, they weren't just trivia. They were the madness that made Blazing Saddles possible. The chaos, the danger, the absurdity, it was all baked into the film. That's why it didn't just cross lines. It erased them, laughed at them, and rode straight past them into history.